All right, let's talk about one of Python's most fundamental tools, the while loop. Have you ever been coding and thought, I need this thing to run over and over again, but I have no idea when it's supposed to stop? Well, if that sounds familiar, you are definitely in the right place. So let's frame the problem like this. How do you get your code to repeat a task when you just don't know when it should stop? Think about it. Maybe you're waiting for a user to type quit, or you're running a game loop that needs to go on until someone wins. You can't just tell it to run 10 times, so what do? And boom, that is exactly the problem the while loop was born to solve. It's Python's super elegant answer, and it's pretty simple really. It's a way to tell your program, hey, keep doing this thing over and over again, as long as this one specific condition is true. That condition, that's the secret sauce. It's not just repeating, it's repeating with a purpose. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What is a while loop really? Let's break down the logic of how it all works. The best way to think about this isn't even with code. It's like cooking. Seriously. Imagine you're making a sauce. You don't tell yourself, okay, I'm going to stir this exactly 50 times. That'd be crazy, right? No, you think, I'm going to keep stirring this while it's still thin. The action, stirring, keeps going until a condition is met. The sauce is thick enough. That is a while loop, right there in your kitchen. All right, enough with the analogies. Theory is great, but let's be real, code is where it all makes sense. So let's actually build our first loop and see this thing in action. Okay, so every while loop has basically 4 key parts, and you gotta have all of them. First, you initialize something. You set up a starting point. Here, we've got count equals 1. Simple enough. Second, you have the condition itself. This is the big one. While count less than 5. This is the question Python asks every single time. Third, you've got the code block, the stuff you actually want to do, like print count. And fourth, and please do not forget this one, you have the update. That count plus equals 1 is what prevents disaster. It's how the loop makes progress towards eventually stopping. So let's trace this. Python gets to our code, count is 1, it hits the while line and asks itself, okay, is 1 less than or equal to 5? Well, yep, it sure is. So Python says, great, I'm going in, and it runs the code inside, which is to print the number 1. And right after that, it hits our update line. Count is no longer 1, it's now 2. And what happens next? It doesn't continue down. No, it jumps right back up to the top to ask the question all over again. So is 2 less than or equal to 5? Yep, so it prints 2. Then it updates count to 3, and back to the top we go. You're getting the hang of this, right? It's a rhythm. Is 3 less than or equal to 5? Yes. Print 3. Update count to 4. And again, is 4 less than or equal to 5? You bet. So it prints 4. And now count becomes 5. Okay, here's the interesting part. Is 5 less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is. They're equal. So it prints 5. But then it updates count one more time. So count is now 6. It goes back to the top for one last check. Is 6 less than or equal to 5? And for the first time, the answer is no. The condition is false. The loop is broken. The program finally moves on. And that's it. That's the whole life of a while loop. So that counter was a perfect way to learn. But let's be honest, the real fun begins when we get more control. We're going to look at how to take charge of your loops and make them do some really powerful stuff. All right, so how do you stop a loop that isn't just counting? You've got 2 main tools in your belt. First is using a flag. This is like a light switch. You set a variable, maybe called active, to true. The loop runs while active is true. Then, somewhere inside, when you're ready to stop, you just flip the switch. You set active to false. It's a nice, clean way to end things. Then there's break. I think of break as the big red emergency stop button. The second your code hits the word break, it doesn't finish the current loop, it doesn't check the condition again, it's just out, instantly. Now, don't get break confused with its cousin, continue. They are super different. Break means we are done here, get out of this loop entirely. But continue is different. Continue just means I'm done with this specific round. It skips whatever code is left in the current iteration and jumps right back to the top to start the next one. So break is stop, continue is skip. Okay, we need to talk about something. Something every programmer runs into. The dreaded infinite loop. This is a big one, so listen up, because knowing how to avoid this is a major pro tip. So what the heck is an infinite loop? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a loop where the condition never ever becomes false. Remember that update step we said was so important? If you forget that, your loop might just run forever. Your program gets stuck in this endless cycle, and usually it just freezes up completely. Not good. And that really brings us to the golden rule of while loops. The single most important part of any loop is its exit strategy. You have to know how it's going to end. Before you write a single line of code inside the loop, you should be able to answer the question, what is going to happen that will eventually make this condition false? If you can answer that, you're golden. And that's the while loop in a nutshell. We've covered the basics, how to control it, and the one big thing to avoid. Honestly, you have just unlocked a massive piece of the programming puzzle. This is a core power that lets you build games, user interfaces, data processors, anything really. So the real question is, now that you know how to do it, what are you going to build?